Hello friends, I'm Dr. Vivek and today I'm going to discuss a very important critic of Greek literature or in literature itself, that is Longinus. Yes, dear friends, Longinus we are going to discuss today. And Longinus basically has written on sublime work. What is sublime is sublimity that he has talked about in his works and whatever he has written. Basically, he is explaining sublimity, role of sublimity, what's all about sublimity is. Sublimity, as it is, you can see, when our intellects, our emotions, and our wills harmoniously respond to a given work of art, we know we have been touched by the sublimity. If intellect, will, and emotions work harmoniously, then we achieve sublimity in literature or sublimity in itself. Let's talk about some of the important facts about Longinus. First of all, I want to tell you I have divided this study of Longinus in two parts: the Longinus first part and the Longinus second part. Longinus first I will be dealing with in this video, and the Longinus second I will make a separate video. That would be the second part of Longinus. Let's discuss the important facts about Longinus. Longinus is one of the greatest Greek critics. His position is only next to Aristotle. As you know, Aristotle is a very important, very prestigious name, very renowned name in literature, in criticism. So he is next to Aristotle. So how important it is, you can understand by this fact. Longinus' treatise on sublime is written in Greek and addressed to posthumous Terentaciousness. One third part of this treatise is missing. One third part of this treatise on the sublime is missing. The subject of this treatise is rhetoric, and central argument is what constitutes sublimity in literature. The central argument is talk about the sublimity. Now, sublimity in literature. What do you mean by? What do you understand by sublimity in literature? Before Longinus, critics thought that the main function of literature is to instruct, to delight, and persuade. Yes, dear friends, it's here very important that earlier to Longinus, the critics were telling the function of literature is just only to instruct, to delight, and persuade. But he added, it's a Longinus uh, importance. Longinus discovered. Longinus differs from other critics in the sense that Longinus says that he found this three-word formula inadequate. Longinus discovered that the great masterpiece of Greek classical literature were great because of their sublimity. It is not literature is great. Literature is written just not just because it has instruct, delight, and persuade, but according to Longinus, he says that it is because of sublimity, a work of literature is renowned. That is why its great work of literature is called. Longinus says that sublimity, I quote, sublimity, according to Longinus, what he has defined sublimity as, I quote, sublimity consists in certain distinction and consummate excellence in expression, and it is from this and no other source that the greatest poets and prose writers have gained their eminence and immortal fame. The prose writer or greatest poet have has attained the eminence and immortal fame just because of sublimity, according to Longinus. The effect of a lofty passage in not convincing the reason of a reader, but to transport him out of himself. That is the basic purpose of sublimity. Invariably and admirably, speech casts a spell over us and eclipses that which merely aims at persuasion and pleasure. Merely not just because of persuasion or pleasure. Uh, we write a work, sublime work. So it is not instruction, delight, persuasion. That is the test of great literature, but it is the transport, which is the purpose of writing great literature, according to Longinus. It is the capacity to move the reader to ecstasy. If the reader is spellbound by what the writer feels or thinks, the work has the quality of the sublime. If the reader is able to, is spellbound, then and he is able to think about the quality that is the sublimity is. For delight, instruction, and presentation, the writer needs the willing cooperation of the reader, whereas the influences of the sublime act with an irresistible might and get upper hand, and with every reader or hearer. So compelling is the power of speech when it is sublime and truly lofty, that it is not only pleases but excites. It's not pleases or persuasion is the function of literature function, but it should be excite or moves or transfer. Here it's very important. The main function of literature, according to Longinus, is to excite, is to move, is to transport and elevate, and it does not so only once. It does not so only once when we read any work of literature, but every time it is heard or read, every time if we read or listen or hear any sublime work, it moves us, it excites us, it transports us, and it elevates us. Then we can say it's a sublime work. Sublime work always please and pleases all, every time you read or hear or listen. There are five types of sublime that are a test of sublime. We can say he divides into five parts. Sources of sublime. What are the sources? That's very important, dear friends. Let's discuss the five sources of sublime according to Aristotle. That is very important, which the Longinus discusses here. Sources of sublime. According to Longinus, Longinus says that both nature and art contribute to sublimity. If they combine, the nature and art combines, then only we can get the sublimity that arouses sublimity. It's not just the nature, it's not just the art which contribute, which give you sublimity, but it's the combination of nature and art give you sublimity. He believes that, however free nature might be, it works according to the system, which is the business of art. Longinus says that art is perfect when it seems to be natural. Art is perfect when it seems to be natural, and nature hits the mark when it consists art within it. For Longinus, there are five sources of sublime, out of which two are largely a gift of nature. The first two are gift of nature, and the remaining three are the gift of art. So it is a combination of gift of nature and gift of art. The five sources of sublime are grandeur. First one is grandeur of thought or nobility of soul. Second is capacity for strong emotion. And the third one, appropriate use of figures. Fourth one is nobility of diction. Fifth one is dignity of composition, or a happy synthesis of all the preceding gifts. These are the five sources of sublime. The first one I'm going to discuss, that is grandeur of thought. Nobody can produce sublime unless his thoughts are sublime. The thought should be, it's here very important, dear friends, that he talks about the thoughts should be sublime. If you want to write a sublime work, then first of all, you must have the sublime thoughts. Longinus believes that the sublimity is the echo of greatness of soul. It is impossible for those whose lives are full of mean and servile ideas and habits to produce anything that is admirable and worthy of an immoral life. Stately thoughts belong to the loftiest mind. Mostly they are innate. These thoughts, these sublime thoughts are innate. But here, dear friends, it's very important. But they can also be acquired by a proper discipline. If you have proper discipline, you can acquire the sublimity of thoughts. They can be inculcated by dwelling constantly upon whatever is noble and sublime, and by emulating the examples of great masters. Emulation brings the great examples before our eyes, emulates our path, and lifts our souls to the high standard of perfection by linking sublimity of expression with the sublimity of thought. Longinus assigns higher purpose to transport, such as hypnotism caused by noble, will certainly have an elevating effect, but morally and artificially. So here, danger of thoughts are important to write a sublime work. Second important thing, dear friends, is capacity for strong emotion. There are five sources of sublime we are discussing here, dear friends. And the first we have discussed, grandeur of thought is the gift of nature, and the second gift of nature is capacity for strong emotions, and the three remaining are the gift of art. So these both are important. The second gift of nature is capacity for strong emotion. Longinus believes that nothing makes so much for grandeur as the true emotions at right place, because it inspires the words and with wild gust of mad enthusiasm fills them with divine frenzy. This inspiration and this gust of mad enthusiasm will give you divine frenzy. Sorry, will transport to a divine frenzy. It is for this reason that Longinus prefers Iliad to Odyssey and Demosthenes to Sicily. This is the only reason. Like stately thought, stately emotions belong to loftiest souls. So this would ultimately lead to loftiness of utterance, while Aristotle had justified the emotions by cathartic effect. The transporting, the source of transportation is cathartic effect, and here it is the while the Aristotle justified the emotions in the cathartic effect. Uh, Now, Longinus values them for aesthetic transport that they cause. Now, as Aristotle calls it cathartic effect, and here Longinus says that it's a aesthetic transport that causes sublimity. Cathartic effect is the primarily moral, whereas transport is primarily aesthetic, although it ultimately leads to moral upliftment of the soul. Both the purpose, either Aristotle or Longinus, both the purpose of sublime work is upliftment of the soul. So Longinus offers a artistic explanation, the emotional appeal of literature than Aristotle. It is more emotionally more appealable than the Aristotle. So these two parts here, dear friends, I have discussed in this part of section 1 of Longinus the sources of sublime, and the sources of sublime, two sources, that is gift of nature, the grandeur of thought, and the second gift we have discussed in this part of Longinus first. And in the second part, I will be dealing with gift of art. The three rest part of sources of sublime I will discuss in the second part of Longinus second. So be stay with me, and thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much.